Dr. Elena Martinez ran her fingers across the holographic star map floating above her desk. Something was wrong with it, but she could not figure out what. The ancient chart showed thousands of star systems, trade routes, and civilization markers scattered across the galaxy. But there was a huge empty space where Earth's solar system should be. She had been working in the Galactic Council archives on Zentari Prime for 3 years now. As one of the few human xenoarchaeologists in the galaxy, Elena spent her days studying old maps and documents from civilizations that died out long before humans ever left Earth. It was fascinating work, but today she felt confused and worried. Elena called her research partner over to her workstation. Kethva was a tall, blue-skinned Zentari with large black eyes and 6 arms. He was brilliant at reading ancient languages and had helped Elena translate hundreds of documents over the years. "Kethva, look at this map," Elena said, pointing to the empty space. "This chart is from the Vorthon Empire. It's over 40,000 years old. But look here, there's nothing marked where our solar system should be." Kethva's normally calm expression changed. His eyes grew wider and his blue skin turned a lighter shade. All 6 of his arms began to shake slightly. "Perhaps the map is damaged," he said quickly. "Old charts often have missing sections." Elena shook her head. "I've looked at 17 different star maps from 12 different civilizations. They all show the same thing. Our sector of space is either completely empty or marked with symbols I can't read. What does this mean?" Kethva looked around the archive room nervously. There were only a few other researchers working at distant tables, but he still lowered his voice to almost a whisper. "Elena, some things are better left alone. The galaxy is very old and has many mysteries. Not all of them need to be solved." This only made Elena more curious. In all their time working together, Kethva had never avoided a research question. He loved solving puzzles and uncovering historical secrets. His strange reaction told her this was something important. "I'm going to check the restricted archives," Elena said. "Maybe there are older records that explain this." "No," Kethva said, louder than he intended. Several other researchers looked up from their work. He quickly lowered his voice again. "The restricted section requires special permission. It could take months to get approval." Elena studied her friend's face. She had learned to read Zentari expressions fairly well, and Kethva looked scared. "Really scared? What aren't you telling me?" she asked. Kethva was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed and gestured for Elena to follow him. They walked to a small conference room at the back of the archives. Kethva closed the door and activated a privacy shield that would prevent their conversation from being overheard. "What I am about to tell you is not in any official records," he began. "My grandfather told me this story when I was young. I thought it was just an old tale meant to frighten children." Elena leaned forward in her chair. "What story?" "Long ago, before the Galactic Council existed, there was a region of space that all civilizations avoided. Ships that went there never came back. Those that did return brought stories of empty worlds and strange shadows that moved between the stars." Kethva paused and looked at Elena carefully. "That region was called the Quiet Sector. According to the old stories, it was marked as forbidden in every star map for thousands of years." "The Quiet Sector," Elena repeated. "That's where Earth is located, isn't it?" "Yes. But Elena, humans only made contact with galactic civilization 300 years ago. The warnings about the Quiet Sector are much, much older than that." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of warnings?" "My grandfather said the ancient texts described things that lived in that sector. Things that were not natural. The phrase he remembered was, 'where the void touched dwell.' He said it meant beings that could drain the life from entire worlds." Elena stared at Kethva. "But that's impossible. Humans have been exploring space for centuries. We've never found evidence of any other intelligent life in our local systems." "Perhaps the evidence was hidden," Kethva suggested. "Or perhaps the beings the ancient texts described were not what we think they were." Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Could there be some unknown alien species living in human space? Or was there something about Earth itself that had frightened ancient civilizations? "I need to see those restricted archives," she said. Kethva shook his head. "Elena, please listen to me. Some knowledge is dangerous. If the ancient civilizations marked that sector as forbidden, they had good reasons." But Elena was already making plans. She had security clearance for most of the archives, and she knew Dr. Nina Foster, one of the human representatives on the council. Nina might be able to help her get access to the restricted sections. They returned to their workstations, but Elena could not concentrate on her regular research. She kept thinking about the empty spaces on the star maps and the phrase, "where the void touched dwell." That evening, Elena went to her small apartment near the archives. She made dinner and tried to watch some entertainment programs, but her mind kept returning to the mystery. She decided to send a message to some of her old colleagues who were working on human exploration ships. The first few people she contacted had not seen anything unusual, but when she reached Commander Jake Sullivan, who was stationed on the exploration vessel UES Pathfinder at the edge of known space, his response was different. Jake had been Elena's friend since their university days on Earth. He was a good officer and a careful observer. His message came back within an hour, and it was encrypted with military-grade security. Elena decoded the message and read it twice before she fully understood what Jake was telling her. The Pathfinder had been investigating some unusual energy readings near the border between human and Zentari space. They had found something that Jake described as impossible and terrifying. The message ended with coordinates in a single line. "You need to see what we found out here." Elena looked out her apartment window at the alien stars above Zentari Prime. For the first time since arriving on this world, she felt truly afraid. Whatever humanity's secret was, she was about to discover it, and based on Kethva's reaction and Jake's urgent message, she was not going to like what she found. She began making arrangements to travel to the coordinates Jake had sent. Something told her that once she saw what the Pathfinder had discovered, her understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy would never be the same again. The next morning, Elena submitted a request for emergency research leave. She told her supervisors she needed to investigate a potential archaeological site that might help explain some gaps in the historical record. It was not exactly a lie, but it was not the whole truth either. As she prepared to leave Zentari Prime, Elena could not shake the feeling that she was about to uncover something that would change everything. The empty spaces on the ancient star map suddenly seemed less like missing information and more like warnings that had been deliberately placed there. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the quiet sector, Elena was determined to find them. Elena's shuttle docked with the UES Pathfinder 3 days later. Commander Jake Sullivan met her at the airlock, and she could see the worry in his eyes immediately. Jake was normally a calm, confident man, but something had clearly shaken him. "I'm glad you came," Jake said as they walked through the ship's corridors. "I wasn't sure who else to call about this. The crew is starting to get nervous." "What exactly did you find?" Elena asked. "A dead world," Jake replied, "but not dead in any natural way. Dr. Ryan Brooks, our xenobiologist, says it should be a paradise. Perfect atmosphere, abundant water, ideal temperature. Instead, it's completely lifeless." They reached the bridge where Elena met the rest of Jake's senior staff. Captain Lisa Ward was the ship's military advisor, a tough woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Sergeant Tony Clark handled security and looked like he had not slept well in days. "Dr. Martinez," Captain Ward said, shaking Elena's hand, "we could use your expertise. What we found down there doesn't match anything in our databases." Jake activated the main view screen, showing the planet below them. Kepler 442c looked beautiful from space with blue oceans and green land masses. But as Elena looked closer, she noticed something strange. The green areas looked too uniform, too flat. "The planet should have forests, grasslands, animal life," Dr. Brooks explained. He was a young man with thick glasses and an excited way of speaking. "According to our scans, the soil is perfect for supporting life. The climate is ideal, but there's nothing down there except some kind of uniform plant covering. And ruins," Sergeant Clark added grimly. "Lots of ruins." Elena studied the sensor readings. "How old are these ruins?" "That's the problem," Jake said. "The decay pattern suggests they're ancient, maybe 50,000 years old. But the architecture is incredibly advanced, more advanced than anything we've seen from any current galactic civilization." Elena felt a familiar excitement mixed with dread. This was exactly the kind of discovery that could rewrite history books. It was also exactly the kind of discovery that ancient civilizations had apparently warned others to avoid. "I need to see these ruins for myself," she said. Captain Ward looked uncomfortable. "Dr. Martinez, I should warn you that the landing parties have been experiencing some unusual effects. Headaches, strange dreams, equipment malfunctions. Nothing dangerous yet, but definitely unusual." Elena nodded. I understand the risks. 2 hours later, Elena was in a shuttle heading down to the planet's surface with Jake, Dr. Brooks, and Sergeant Clark. As they entered the atmosphere, Elena could see the ruins spread across the landscape below. They were massive structures that looked like they had once been beautiful cities. The shuttle landed near what appeared to be the largest complex. Elena stepped out and immediately felt something wrong. The air was breathable and the temperature was comfortable, but there was a strange quality to the light. Everything seemed slightly dimmer than it should be, as if the sun's rays were being absorbed by something invisible. This way, Dr. Brooks said, leading them toward a partially intact building. We found the most interesting artifacts in here. The structure was made of a dark metallic material that Elena did not recognize. As they walked through the entrance, their flashlights revealed walls covered in intricate carvings and murals. Elena gasped when she saw what they depicted. The artwork showed a thriving civilization of tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and elongated heads. But the later murals told a different story. They showed these beings fleeing in terror from humanoid figures that seemed to be surrounded by darkness. In some images, the dark figures appeared to be draining light from their surroundings. Look at this section, Dr. Brooks said, pointing to a series of panels near the back of the room. This appears to show the final days of this civilization. Elena studied the murals carefully. The artwork was sophisticated and detailed. The fleeing aliens looked genuinely terrified, and the attacking humanoids seemed to consume everything around them. Plants withered, animals collapsed, and even the buildings seemed to lose their color and vitality. What kind of beings could do something like this? Sergeant Clark asked quietly. Elena did not answer immediately. She was thinking about the ancient warnings Kethva had mentioned, where the void touch dwell. Could these murals be depicting the same beings? Dr. Brooks led them deeper into the ruins. We found a data storage device that's still partially functional. It took our computers 2 days to figure out how to access it, but we managed to translate some of the contents. They reached a room where the expedition had set up their equipment. A portable computer displayed text in several languages, including a rough translation into English. Elena read the translated sections with growing horror. The data described systematic attacks by beings that could manipulate fundamental forces. The aliens called them children of the Dark Star and said they fed on the essence of worlds. According to this, Dr. Brooks explained, the attackers didn't just kill the population. They drained some kind of life energy from every living thing on the planet. The survivors managed to escape, but they left this record as a warning. Elena continued reading. The final entries included coordinates and a description of where the attackers had come from. Her blood ran cold when she realized the coordinates matched Earth's solar system. Jake, she said quietly, we need to get back to the ship immediately. What's wrong? He asked. Before Elena could answer, Sergeant Clark's radio crackled with a transmission from the Pathfinder. The voice on the other end sounded panicked. Landing party, return to the ship immediately. We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the direction of human space. Unknown vessels traveling at impossible speeds. Elena felt her heart racing. How long until they arrive? At current speed, approximately 6 hours. As they hurried back to their shuttle, Elena noticed that their equipment was behaving strangely. Power cells that should have lasted for days were draining rapidly. Dr. Brooks's scanner was giving impossible readings, showing energy levels that fluctuated wildly. During the flight back to the Pathfinder, Elena experienced something that terrified her more than the approaching ships. She began having vivid flashes of images that felt like memories, but they were not her memories. She saw vast, hungry entities reaching across space, searching for worlds rich with life energy. She saw civilizations falling as their life force was consumed by beings that existed partially outside normal reality. The images felt real, as if she was somehow connected to whatever had destroyed this world. Elena, are you okay? Jake asked. You look pale. Elena realized she was shaking. Something is happening to me. I'm seeing things, remembering things that never happened to me. Dr. Brooks checked his instruments. The energy readings around the planet are increasing. It's as if our presence here has activated something. When they reached the Pathfinder, Captain Ward was already preparing the ship for departure. We need to leave this system immediately, she announced. Long-range sensors are showing multiple contacts approaching at faster than light speeds. Whatever they are, they're not using any propulsion technology we recognize. As the Pathfinder jumped to hyperspace, Elena looked back at the dead world through the ship's cameras. For just a moment, she thought she saw shadows moving across the planet's surface, shadows that seemed to reach toward their departing ship. Elena knew now that humanity was connected to this ancient horror in some way. The evidence was clear. The coordinates in the alien data matched Earth's location. The murals showed humanoid attackers, and she was somehow experiencing memories or visions related to the planet's destruction. Whatever humanity really was, it was something that had terrified ancient civilizations enough to mark human space as forbidden territory for thousands of years. And now, Elena was beginning to fear that she was about to discover just how justified those ancient warnings had been. The Pathfinder's sensors continued to track the approaching energy signatures until they entered hyperspace. But even as they fled toward human space, Elena could not shake the feeling that whatever was following them already knew exactly where they were going. Elena stood before the Galactic Council in their massive chamber on Zentari Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved seating area, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. But Elena could feel the tension in the room as she prepared to present her findings. Council Director Vex Thrawn, a large slug-like being from the mollusk hegemony, presided over the session. His voice boomed through translation devices as he spoke. Dr. Martinez, you have requested this emergency session to present findings about ancient civilizations. Please proceed. Elena activated her holographic display, showing the dead world of Kepler 442c and the murals they had discovered. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the alien representative saw the images of the fleeing civilization and their mysterious attackers. What you see here, Elena began, is evidence of a systematic extermination that occurred approximately 50,000 years ago. The attackers were described by the victims as beings that could drain life energy from entire worlds. She showed the translated texts and the coordinates that pointed to Earth's solar system. The murmurs grew louder, and Elena noticed that many of the alien representatives were exchanging worried glances. The evidence suggests that these attackers came from the region of space now occupied by humanity. Elena continued. This explains why ancient star maps show our sector as empty or forbidden. Director Vex Thrawn raised one of his massive tentacles for silence. Dr. Martinez, your findings are interesting, but based on incomplete data. Ancient texts often contain metaphorical language that should not be taken literally. Elena frowned. This was not the reaction she had expected. Director, the evidence is quite clear. The coordinates match exactly, and the descriptions of the attackers are consistent across multiple sources. Perhaps, Vex Thrawn replied smoothly, but we must be careful not to jump to conclusions based on ancient myths and legends. Commander Sullivan stepped forward from where he had been standing at the back of the chamber. With respect, Director, this is not just ancient history. During our investigation, we detected energy signatures approaching from human space. Our equipment malfunctioned in ways that matched the descriptions in the alien texts. Several council members began talking at once, their voices creating a cacophony of different languages and sounds. Elena noticed that the human representatives looked particularly uncomfortable. Order, Vex Thrawn called. This session will proceed in an orderly manner. Elena looked around the chamber and realized something was wrong. The alien representatives seemed scared but not surprised. They knew something about this already. Director, Elena said, I believe the council already knows about these findings. Why are you trying to suppress this information? Vex Thrawn's large eyes fixed on Elena with an expression she could not read. Dr. Martinez, you are making serious accusations without evidence. Then let me provide more evidence, Elena replied. She activated another section of her presentation, showing the energy readings from their equipment failures and the strange visions she had experienced on the planet. As she spoke, Elena noticed a human woman sitting in the observer section making subtle hand gestures toward her. The woman was Dr. Nina Foster, whom Elena had contacted about accessing the restricted archives. Nina was pointing toward a side exit and mouthing the word leave. Elena continued her presentation, but she was now paying attention to the reactions around the chamber. The alien representatives looked increasingly agitated, while the human delegation seemed to be having a quiet but urgent discussion among themselves. When Elena finished, Director Vex Thrawn stood to his full imposing height. The council thanks Dr. Martinez for her research. but we must note that her conclusions are highly speculative. We recommend that further investigation of this matter be suspended pending a full review. Suspended, Elena said. Director, we may have discovered evidence of an active threat to galactic civilization. The matter is closed, Vex Thrawn declared firmly. This session is adjourned. As the chamber began to empty, Elena felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Dr. Nina Foster, who leaned close and whispered, "Meet me in Archive Section 7 in 1 hour. Come alone." Elena spent the next hour walking around the council complex trying to make sense of what had just happened. It was clear that the council was covering something up, but she could not understand why they would suppress information about a potential threat. When she reached Archive Section 7, she found Dr. Foster waiting with a small datapad and a worried expression. "Elena, what I'm about to show you could get us both in serious trouble," Nina said. "But after your presentation today, I think you need to know the truth." Nina activated the datapad, showing Elena classified documents that were marked with the highest security levels. "The Council has known about humanity's connection to these ancient attacks for over 200 years, Nina explained. "We've been covering it up to prevent galactic panic." Elena stared at the documents. They contained detailed analyses of the same evidence she had presented, along with additional findings that were even more disturbing. "According to these reports," Nina continued, "humans are not native to this dimension. We're descendants of an extra-dimensional species that accidentally crossed into this reality thousands of years ago." Elena felt dizzy as she read the classified research. The documents described humans as having latent abilities that could activate under extreme stress, including the power to drain energy from living beings and manipulate dark matter. "This is impossible," Elena whispered. "The crossing left humans with abilities that remain mostly dormant," Nina explained. "But under the right conditions they can manifest. The ancient civilizations encountered these abilities and barely survived the experience." Elena thought about her strange visions on the dead planet and the equipment failures they had experienced. "Are you saying that humans are the beings described in the ancient warnings?" "Not exactly," Nina replied. "We're their descendants, but most of us don't know about our true nature. The abilities have been suppressed by living in this dimension for so long. But Elena, they're starting to wake up." Nina showed Elena more classified reports from human colonies on the edge of known space. Strange incidents were occurring with increasing frequency. People were experiencing shared nightmares. Electronic equipment was failing around certain individuals, and some colonists had reported seeing shadows that moved independently of any light source. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena asked. "Because the situation is getting worse," Nina replied. "Every human expansion into space brings us closer to worlds with high life energy concentrations. And each time more people begin to manifest the abilities." Elena read about incidents on human colonies where native wildlife had mysteriously disappeared overnight, leaving no trace except areas of dead vegetation in perfect circles around human settlements. "The Council isn't trying to protect humanity," Elena realized. "They're trying to protect the galaxy from humanity." "Exactly," Nina confirmed. "But there's something else. The energy signatures your ship detected approaching from human space weren't human vessels." Elena looked up from the datapad. "What were they?" "We think they were our extra-dimensional cousins," Nina said grimly. "The original species that we descended from. And if they're starting to take notice of this dimension again, it means humanity's abilities are growing strong enough to attract their attention." Elena felt a chill run through her body. "What does that mean for us?" "It means we may be about to face a choice," Nina replied. "Either humanity learns to control these abilities, or we risk becoming the advance scouts for an invasion by beings that view all life in this dimension as nothing more than food." Elena thought about the dead world they had discovered and the terrified aliens in the ancient murals. If humanity really was connected to those attackers, then every human in the galaxy was potentially a threat to everyone around them. "What can we do?" Elena asked. Nina gathered up the datapad and prepared to leave. "First, we need to warn people about what's coming. But Elena, be very careful who you trust with this information. There are humans who already know about our nature, and some of them think we should embrace it rather than fight it." As Nina disappeared into the shadows of the archive section, Elena was left alone with the terrible knowledge that humanity was not what they appeared to be. They were descendants of beings that could drain the life from entire worlds, and their abilities were beginning to awaken. Somewhere in human space, shadows were moving that should not exist, and Elena feared that the ancient warnings about the quiet sector were about to prove themselves terrifyingly accurate. Elena's message reached Major Alex Rodriguez at Luna Base, just as the first strange incident occurred. Alex was reviewing routine patrol reports when his communication system crackled with Elena's encrypted transmission from Zentari Prime. "Alex, I need you to listen carefully," Elena's voice said through the static. "Humanity is not what we think we are. There are abilities hidden in our genetics that are starting to wake up. You need to watch for unusual energy phenomena around human populations." Alex paused the message and looked out the observation window at Earth, hanging in space below. Luna Base was home to 3,000 military personnel and civilians, all going about their normal routines. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the corridor in red light. Alex's radio immediately filled with reports from across the base. "Section C is reporting complete power. Failure," came one voice. "Medical. Bay has lost all electronic equipment," said another. "Sir, you need to see this," called Sergeant Tony Clark over the radio. Alex remembered him from Elena's reports about the Dead Planet expedition. Alex made his way to the main observation deck where Tony was standing with several other personnel. They were all staring at something outside the window. Floating in space near the base was a dark shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was roughly the size of a small shuttle, but it had no visible propulsion system and appeared to be moving in impossible ways. "How long has it been out there?" Alex asked. "About 10 minutes, Tony replied. "It appeared right after the power failures started." "Sir, I think it might be connected to what Dr. Martinez discovered." Alex activated his emergency communicator and sent a priority message to Earth Command. But before he could finish the transmission, he noticed something else disturbing. Several of the base personnel were standing perfectly still, staring at the dark shape with blank expressions on their faces. "Hey, you okay?" Alex asked Lieutenant Ben Harris, who was standing nearby. Ben did not respond. His eyes were fixed on the dark shape, and Alex could see that his pupils were completely dilated. When Alex touched Ben's shoulder, the man was ice cold despite the normal temperature of the observation deck. Similar scenes were playing out across Luna Base. About 1 in 10 people had fallen into this strange trance state, while the others seemed unaffected. Alex quickly organized the unaffected personnel to move the trance victims to the medical bay. Dr. Amy Collins, the base's chief medical officer, ran tests on the affected individuals but found nothing wrong with them physically. Their vital signs were normal, but they remained completely unresponsive. "It's like they're dreaming while awake," Dr. Collins explained to Alex. "Brain scans show unusual activity in areas associated with extrasensory perception and spatial awareness." Alex thought about Elena's message and the reports of awakening abilities in humans. "Doctor, is it possible that these people are experiencing some kind of psychic phenomenon?" Before Dr. Collins could answer, every electronic device in the medical bay suddenly shut down. The trance victims all opened their eyes at the same moment and spoke in perfect unison. "They are calling to us," they said in voices that did not sound quite human. "The hunger grows. The crossing point weakens." Then they collapsed unconscious, and all the electronic equipment came back online. Alex immediately sent an encrypted message to Admiral Kate Mitchell at Earth Command, describing what had happened at Luna Base. Her response came back within an hour, along with orders to report to a classified facility in the Colorado mountains. 2 days later, Alex found himself in a deep underground complex that officially did not exist. Admiral Mitchell met him at the entrance along with Dr. Stephen Grant, a scientist Alex had never heard of but who seemed to know everything about the incidents at Luna Base. "Welcome to the Prometheus Protocol," Admiral Mitchell said as they walked through corridors lined with advanced technology. "We've been preparing for this day for 30 years. Dr. Grant led them to a briefing room where holographic displays showed incident reports from across human space. The pattern was clear and terrifying. On colony worlds, space stations, and ships throughout human territory, people were manifesting abilities that should not exist. The abilities appear to be triggered by proximity to high concentrations of life energy, Dr. Grant explained. Colonial worlds with abundant native life see the highest manifestation rates. Alex studied the reports. On New Eden, An agricultural colony, entire forests had withered overnight around human settlements. On Kepler Station, personnel had reported shared dreams of vast hungry entities reaching across space. Most disturbing were the reports from the mining colony on Titan 7, where workers had apparently drained the life energy from indigenous crystalline organisms just by being near them. "How long have you known about this?" Alex asked. Admiral Mitchell activated another display showing historical data. "We've been tracking unusual incidents among human populations for decades, but the frequency has increased dramatically in recent years, especially among people who work in space or on frontier worlds." Dr. Grant pulled up genetic analysis charts. "We believe the abilities are connected to exposure to cosmic radiation and specific electromagnetic fields found near certain types of stars. Earth's sun apparently suppresses these abilities, but other stellar environments can activate them." Alex thought about the trance victims at Luna Base and their synchronized speech. What did they mean when they said the crossing point weakens? Admiral Mitchell and Dr. Grant exchanged a look. "That's the part that worries us most," the Admiral said. "We believe there's a dimensional barrier that separates us from the realm where humanity's original species exists. If that barrier is weakening, it could mean they're trying to cross over into our dimension." Dr. Grant showed Alex more classified data about the energy signatures that Commander Sullivan's ship had detected. Analysis suggested they were not coming from any known technology, but rather from entities that existed partially outside normal spacetime. "We think humanity's awakening abilities are acting like a beacon," Dr. Grant explained. "The more humans who manifest these powers, the easier it becomes for our extra-dimensional cousins to locate our dimension." Alex was beginning to understand the scope of the crisis. "So we're not just dealing with humans developing dangerous abilities. We're potentially facing invasion by the beings that gave us those abilities in the first place." "Exactly," Admiral Mitchell confirmed, "and some humans are already working to help that invasion succeed." She activated a new display showing surveillance footage from various human colonies. The images showed people conducting strange rituals around captured alien life forms. The humans appeared to be deliberately draining energy from their captives, and with each successful feeding, their own abilities grew stronger. "This faction is led by General Carl Peterson," Admiral Mitchell explained. "He believes humanity should embrace our true nature and claim dominance over the galaxy. His followers have been conducting experiments to accelerate the awakening process." Alex watched in horror as the footage showed alien prisoners being reduced to drained husks while their human captors grew, visibly stronger and more confident. Peterson's people have established hidden facilities throughout human space, Dr. Grant added. "They're systematically capturing alien life forms and using them to enhance human abilities. Each successful feeding makes the dimensional barrier weaker." Admiral Mitchell turned to Alex with a grim expression. "Major, we need you to lead a mission to one of Peterson's facilities. Dr. Grant has developed technology that might be able to suppress the abilities, but we need to test it under real conditions." Alex looked at the data about Peterson's faction and their experiments. The implications were staggering. If they continued their work, they could weaken the dimensional barrier enough to allow a full-scale invasion by humanity's extra-dimensional ancestors. "What makes you think we can stop them?" Alex asked. "If they have these enhanced abilities, won't they be too powerful for normal humans to fight?" Dr. Grant smiled grimly and led Alex to another section of the facility. Here, scientists and technicians were working on devices that looked like a cross between medical implants and electronic equipment. "We've developed neural inhibitors that can suppress the energy-draining abilities," Dr. Grant explained. "The problem is that using them requires volunteers to risk having the devices permanently alter their brain chemistry." Alex studied the devices. They were small enough to be implanted behind the ear, but the technical specifications showed they would create permanent changes in neural pathways. "We need people who are willing to sacrifice their potential abilities to protect others," Admiral Mitchell said. "People who choose to remain fully human rather than become something else." As Alex considered the Admiral's words, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. A technician ran up to Dr. Grant with a panicked expression. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching Earth's solar system. Multiple contacts, traveling faster than light, origin point unknown." Alex looked at the tactical displays showing dozens of dark shapes heading directly toward Earth. Whatever was coming had been drawn by humanity's awakening abilities, and it was arriving much sooner than anyone had expected. The choicey. Elena stood on the bridge of the UES Pathfinder as it raced toward Earth's solar system. The ship's sensors showed a horrifying sight, dozens of dark entities surrounding Earth and its colonies, while human and alien fleets faced each other in a tense standoff. Commander Sullivan checked the tactical display. The Galactic Council fleet arrived 6 hours ago. They're demanding that all humans submit to immediate containment protocols. General Peterson's faction has refused and is preparing to fight. Elena could see the battle lines forming through the ship's view screen. The Council fleet consisted of over 200 vessels from various alien species, their weapons charged and ready. Opposing them were human ships that seemed to flicker in and out of normal space, as if they were partially existing in another dimension. "What about the entities surrounding Earth?" Elena asked. Dr. Martin Wells, who had joined the mission to help develop countermeasures, pointed to a section of space near Luna Base. "Those are the Umbral Collective. They're the extra-dimensional beings that humanity descended from. They're not attacking yet, but they're clearly evaluating the situation." Elena opened a communication channel to Luna Base, where Major Rodriguez was coordinating the defense effort. "Alex, what's the situation down there?" Alex's voice came through with heavy static. "Elena, it's chaos. About 20% of the human population has manifested the abilities now. Peterson's people are trying to convince them to join the collective, while we're trying to get volunteers for the neural inhibitor program." Elena could hear explosions in the background of Alex's transmission. "The enhanced humans are incredibly powerful," he continued. "They can drain energy from electronic systems just by concentrating on them. But the inhibitor devices Dr. Grant developed seem to work." Dr. Wells pulled up data from the inhibitor program. "We have over 1,000 volunteers who have accepted the neural implants. They've given up any chance of developing the abilities, but they can function normally around enhanced humans without being affected." Elena studied the tactical situation. 3 different groups were converging on Earth's solar system, each with their own agenda. The Galactic Council wanted to contain or destroy humanity before their abilities could spread. General Peterson's faction wanted to embrace the abilities and join with the Umbral Collective. And Elena's group was trying to find a middle path that would save both humanity and the galaxy. "Jake, take us toward the largest concentration of Umbral entities," Elena said. "I want to try to communicate with them." As the Pathfinder approached the dark beings, Elena felt the familiar sensation of images flooding her mind. But this time the visions were clearer and more controlled. She could sense the vast intelligence behind the Umbral Collective and their, hunger for the life energy that filled this dimension. The communication came not in words but in direct thoughts transmitted into Elena's consciousness. "Young ones," the Umbral mind spoke, "you have grown strong enough to call to us across the dimensional barriers. It is time to return to your true nature and help us harvest the abundance of this realm." Elena forced herself to respond mentally while her body remained on the ship's bridge. "We don't want to harvest anything. We want to coexist peacefully with the other species here." The Umbral presence seemed amused. "Peace is an illusion. All life exists to feed other life. You were seated in this dimension to prepare for our arrival. The awakening of your abilities is proof that you are ready to fulfill your purpose." Elena could feel the Umbral entities pressing against her mind, trying to convince her to accept their perspective. But she also sensed something else. They were not as powerful in this dimension as they were in their home realm. The crossing had weakened them, and they needed human cooperation to establish a permanent foothold. "You need us more than we need you," Elena realized. "You can't survive here without human hosts to anchor you to this reality." The Umbral presence grew cold and threatening. "Do not mistake our offer of partnership for weakness. We can take what we need from your species whether you cooperate or not." But Elena had learned something important. The Umbral Collective was bluffing. They were powerful, but they were also vulnerable while existing between dimensions. Elena opened a communication channel to all human ships and colonies. "This is Dr. Elena Martinez. I've been in contact with the Umbral Collective. They're not invaders, they're refugees. They need human cooperation to survive in our dimension, which means we have leverage." General Peterson's voice immediately responded over the communication channel. "Dr. Martinez, you're interfering with a process that's been inevitable since humanity first left Earth. We are meant to join with our ancestors and reclaim our true heritage. Carl, listen to me, Elena replied. The Umbral Collective sees us as tools, not partners. They want to use humanity to drain life energy from every inhabited world in the galaxy. Peterson's response was angry and defensive. That's what life does. The strong consume the weak. Humanity has been held back by false morality for too long. Elena could see that Peterson's enhanced followers were moving their ships into attack positions against both the Galactic Council fleet and the human forces that opposed them. The situation was about to explode into a three-way battle that would devastate Earth's solar system. Dr. Grant, Elena called over the radio. How many neural inhibitor devices do we have ready? About 5,000, came the reply. But they have to be implanted surgically. We can't deploy them quickly enough to make a difference in this battle. Elena made a desperate decision. What if we could deliver them through the ship's life support systems? A modified version that would temporarily suppress the abilities instead of permanently blocking them. Dr. Wells looked up from his instruments. It's possible, but it would require volunteers to pilot ships directly into the enhanced human formations. The exposure to the inhibitor compounds would probably be fatal to the delivery teams. Elena looked around the bridge at Jake, Dr. Wells, and the other crew members. I'll do it. My exposure to the umbral entities has given me some resistance to the energy-draining effects. Elena, no, Jake said firmly. There has to be another way. But Elena was already moving toward the shuttle bay. Jake, get me as close as possible to Peterson's largest ship. Dr. Wells, prepare the inhibitor compound for atmospheric release. As Elena climbed into a shuttle loaded with inhibitor devices, she opened one final communication channel to address everyone in the solar system. This is Dr. Elena Martinez to all forces present. Humanity stands at a crossroads. We can choose to become predators that drain life from the galaxy. We can submit to containment by other species, or we can find a third path. Elena launched her shuttle toward Peterson's flagship as energy weapons began firing between the various fleets. The Umbral Collective is offering us power, but at the cost of becoming monsters. The Galactic Council is offering us safety, but at the cost of our freedom. I'm offering us the chance to remain human while learning to control what we've become. Elena's shuttle penetrated the formation of enhanced human ships. As she released the inhibitor compound, she could feel the abilities of Peterson's followers beginning to weaken. But she could also feel her own life energy being drained by the process. The choice is yours, Elena broadcast as her shuttle systems began to fail. Embrace the monster, submit to containment, or choose to remain human despite the cost. Elena's shuttle exploded in a brilliant flash of light that somehow neutralized the energy-draining abilities throughout the solar system. In the sudden silence that followed, both human and alien forces found themselves facing a choice that would determine the future of the galaxy. General Peterson's followers, their abilities temporarily suppressed, had to decide whether to continue their alliance with the Umbral Collective without their enhanced powers. The Galactic Council had to choose whether to trust humanity's promise of self-control, and ordinary humans had to decide whether they wanted to risk developing abilities that could make them a threat to everyone around them. Elena's sacrifice had given everyone time to think, but the fundamental questions remained unanswered. In the months that followed, a new organization called the Joint Monitoring Commission was established to oversee human expansion and ensure that the energy-draining abilities remained controlled. But Elena's final transmission had been correct. About one thing, the choice would always be there. Deep in space, on the furthest human colonies, some people continued to experiment with their hidden abilities in secret. The ancient warnings about the quiet sector had been proven accurate. But whether humanity would heed those warnings or repeat the mistakes of the past remained to be seen. The galactic maps were updated to include human space, but they now carried new notations in the margins. Proceed with caution. Inhabited by beings of uncertain nature, and somewhere in the dimensional void between realities. The Umbral Collective waited patiently for humanity to make its final choice about what kind of species it wanted to become.